So let's begin today for just a short prayer about this time we're together, and just say in your mind with me, divine wisdom, come forth into my consciousness now to guide me and direct me. Inner wisdom reveals to me my unique and special gift so that I may express myself fully as a spiritual being. Reveal to me all that I need to hear, all that I need to know, and everything I need to do to fulfill my divine potential. And with that in mind, let's take a few minutes just to meditate on the reason that we're here today and the reason we're watching this. It's time for a quiet reflection where we know that we're one with God and that we're open to inspiration. So I'm going to do this in the first person so that we all feel we are one. And so let's just breathe and relax, knowing that the life of God flows through me as renewing energy. And as I turn my attention inward to the sacred space of quiet, I tune out my surroundings and I focus on my breathing. With each unhurried breath in and out, my heart rate steadies, my mind clears, and I'm filled with peace. I know that these moments benefit me physically, mentally, and spiritually, and I emerge from them feeling refreshed and renewed. I'm ready to experience God's perfect peace. And any silly little unwelcome thoughts that are released with the breath go out that way, and inside I just feel peace and serenity. Right now I'm imagining a very large space. It's like a clearing in the woods. As I listen to the sound of that place, the rustle of the leaves, the gentle flow of water in a stream nearby, I realize that I'm hearing nature's music. And I let the music flow over me and I feel words. And as I become attuned to the beauty of the space, I remember words from songs that I used to sing here. I'm opening my heart. It's ready to receive. I surrender. And I realize that surrendering is not weakness. It's a sign of my heart opening to promises of life and joy, abundance. And so I choose to trust. I trust. And I know that as I surrender, I fall into those hands of love, as the song says. I ponder the meaning of these words, and I realize that the hands of love support me. They're gentle, kind, non-judgmental. And my heart is opening to listen, to learn, to communicate, and understand without giving up what my heart tells me is truly true for me. In confidence and trust in the beliefs that I have, I can respect others and learn from them without fear or resistance, without judgment. So in this space, I find somewhere to sit, and I let thoughts come to me. I see that compassion is the spiritual energy that dissolves the negative effects of judgment. And when I reflect on the conflicts of the world, I declare that I really want to be the peace I desire to see. So I begin to appreciate the rich diversity of this mortal realm. I don't insist on superiority or conformity, but when I make loving choices in my life, I honor and recognize my oneness with all beings. Just as a hot air balloon cannot soar when tied to the ground, so too challenges in my life may tie me down and keep me from rising to the highest heights of awareness. If negativity appears, I turn to that Christ presence within me. My thoughts create my experience of life. So I review any negative beliefs I'm holding. I transform those beliefs into ones that are positive and productive. Through the power of choice and free will, I let go and affirm, I am free, I am unlimited, and I begin to really feel that sense of liberation. There are no chains that bind me when I turn to the indwelling Christ present. And as I let go of mental blocks, my spirit is free to soar like a colorful balloon in flight. I can honor all people as part of God's love and beauty expressed. So I relax into this truth. I breathe deep. I release any tension I might be holding in my body. And I relinquish any mental activities that are stressing my mind. Letting go of any concern about the past or the future, I rest fully in the present moment. Right here and now, I rest in God's perfect peace. I'm replenished and renewed in knowing that I share in God's infinite bounty within each moment of my life. In times of spiritual contemplation, I remember that the one power and presence of God expresses through all things. My source is the source of all life, which expresses in myriad ways. It's as if it's woven on a great loom, and I envision each unique life as an expression, being woven together in love and harmony. I celebrate the resulting tapestry of diversity in my life. And this is how I let that peace begin with me. Together with my human family, I create a world tapestry of interwoven diversity. Each person is a thread, wonderfully unique in appearance and actions. Individuality and free will dictate the necessity for diverse expression. I honor all people as part of God's love and beauty expressed. And just for a moment, I wonder how I would feel if I were born into a different culture, a different religion, and how I would want to be seen in other people's eyes. I let that interpretation of Namaste rule my interactions. It's universally recognized as a greeting of peace, honor, and respect. I bow to godly good qualities within you, as I always try to see the good in all things. Some other popular translations come to me. The divine light in me acknowledges the divine light in you. The God in me greets and meets the God in you. I honor the spirit in you that is also in me. The divine wisdom in me recognizes and acknowledges the divine wisdom in you. These words just simply invoke a sense of sharing a spiritual connection, and they create a sense and feeling of oneness and balance. Essentially, it's a way all humans connect. And I also realize that rest and renewal are a necessity in my life, not a luxury. No matter how full my schedule, I commit to making rest a priority. Each day, I carve out time for physical and spiritual renewal. It makes all the difference in whether I feel God's peace throughout my day. If I have any resistance to feeling this, I just notice it and allow myself to soften, to feel a sense of warmth and peace and calm, a soft expansion around my heart, a solid feeling of safety and security. Any resistances, I just notice it and move on. From this perspective, I may see the music in me, what I'm here to do with all my unique gifts and abilities. And the words of a final song come to me for this visit. I am a light in this world. This is the moment that all of us come together as one in the light, as that song goes. Oh, what a light. So let the music around me inspire me to choose to go forward in love and light. And so it is. Amen. And I'd love you to be all inspired, and then we can all go home. No, I'm sorry. So I read a great story about, and I must admit that I've unashamedly borrowed many ideas and suggestions, and I blame it on jet lag or whatever it is, but they're things that inspire me. So there's a story about a woman who was living in the mountains, and she found a precious stone in a stream. And the next day she met a traveler, and she offered him food because she could see he was hungry. And as she opened her bag, he saw this stone and realized that it was a precious gem. he knew the stone was worth enough to keep him in comfort for the rest of his life. And so he asked her to give it to him. And she said yes, unhesitatingly. So he took off. But a few days later, he came back with the stone and he gave it back to her. And he said, I've been thinking, I know how valuable this stone is, but I give it back to you in the hope that you'll give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me this stone so freely. It must be something more precious. So give me what you have that enabled me to you to give me that stone. I don't know who the writer was for that, but the time is for us to ask the question, how would I discover and live my gift to the world? Something that someone else wants to share, something that they find precious in me. You know, it's funny, when in adulthood we want to get back to that innocence of what we were and loved being when we were children. And if you're really looking for the one person that can guide you in finding your true path, in your way through life, just look at your childhood. Take a look in the mirror. That's what your life stands for. We sometimes cover it up and forget because we're so busy doing what we feel we need to do. So first, quieten your mind and take time to practice letting go of what we call monkey mind. That endless stream of self-criticism, feelings of what if I can't, any regrets about the past. They only make the journey more difficult. Through meditation, prayer, and imagery, you can feel calmer and more centered and remember what's important. Get connected to your innate wisdom. It really is there. We don't always have to ask people what we should do. And there's a little prayer that says, Spirit, reveal to me what I need to know about my personal vision and mission in life in a way that I can understand and act on it creatively and wisely. We often resolve to make changes in our lives around the new year, but we can choose to change our lives any day of the year, any time, now, right now. And as you know, completing any sort of change is not easy. It can be hard. We can resist it. But sometimes there's a reason why we've chosen those goals. There's a reason why we want to change something, because that little voice in us is telling us, hey, this isn't really you. So we need to listen. And I love an article I read about the be attitudes. It's not a play on the words of beatitude that was taught in the Bible. So be courageous. It means being honest and examining what needs to change, why you believe this is so, and what has gotten in the way thus far. Doing so, being honest about yourself, will help you recognize and head off potential habit triggers, and you can remain committed to your goal. We're all human. You know, sometimes we sort of pretend that we're above all this stuff, but we're not. So with starts and stops, downs and anxieties, ups and downs, we will learn to change. And we'll learn what feels good to us and what doesn't. Be willing. Often we wish things were easier, the conditions would be better, or the stars would align more perfectly before we commit to change. But if the goal is important to you, just get going. Be willing to sit with what is less than ideal. And don't confuse things that are hard to do with things that are truly valuable. When you need help, ask for it. Whether this means consulting with an expert, making counsel of good friends, clergy, practitioners, or finding an online support group. Get help and feel the fear and the discomfort and do it anyway. I guess Carrie Fisher once said, stay afraid, but do it anyway. What's important is the action. Eventually, the confidence will follow. Be self-compassionate. This involves accepting yourself, warts and all, regardless of what's going on, and remembering that you are human. You're not meant to be infallible. You afford yourself the same kindness that you'd show anybody else. It's been shown to increase motivation, enhance well-being, and foster greater compassion for others. So it can be incredibly freeing and very healing. Remember, we're in this for the long haul, because life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't have to do everything at once. And sometimes deeply entrenched practices take longer to change, to acknowledge. So, just be aware that positive change is really worth it, because you're worth being your real self. Be self-compassionate. In the book, this thing called You, Dr. Holmes writes, you use the same power to drive your automobile forward or in reverse to move it backward. The energy is not good when it moves forward, nor is it evil when it moves you backward. You must eliminate the idea of good and evil as entities opposing each other and realize that there's one life. There is but one electric energy wherever it may be used, but one creative spirit wherever it is perceived, but one spiritual power wherever it is understood. Like the ethers of space, the creative principle of life is ever present. Being everywhere present, it must be present in you. You are not separate from it. Hence, it must be available at the center of your being. That which defeats you, when you use it in a limited way, gives you victory when you change your attitude towards it, permitting it to flow through you in a more expansive manner. Always it responds by corresponding to your mental attitudes. So you say to yourself, I now accept all that I've hoped for and believed in. There's nothing in me that can doubt that good will make its appearance in my experience. There's nothing in me that can dissipate my faith or dim its clear realization. I see in everyone that which I know to be true about myself. Therefore, everyone I think of is blessed by my thought. You are never limited by principle of your being. Limitation is a result of limited use of this principle. You can come to but one conclusion. There is something which honors your belief, not in a big way, in one place, and in a little way in another. It honors your belief as you believe it. This principle must be without limit. Your thought and acceptance can put brakes on it. In this way, paradoxical as it seems, you limit the limitless. Of course, you really do not limit it, but you do limit its flow in your own experience. It's such a great encouragement to go ahead and trust and be courageous, be adventurous. That's interesting. So, our level of awareness attracts our level of life. The level that we use it, if our awareness stays the same, our life is going to stay the same. And we'll keep saying, oh, I always do this, or I always get this. We may get different people and conditions in our life, but if we haven't changed, if we haven't upgraded our expectations, the result will be the same. We'll continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. So I like to see awareness as a ladder, and the awareness of your life will come from whatever step on that ladder that you're on. So be sure you're on the right ladder for number one. It'd be a shame to do all that work and then get up the top and realize you're on the wrong roof or up the wrong tree. So make sure it's worth climbing. Because you're giving a great deal of effort, it doesn't mean that you're working towards a great goal. You can be terribly industrious in doing absolutely nothing to improve yourself. So you say to yourself, I'm willing to know, I'm willing to grow, I'm willing to become, I'm willing to let go of old thoughts. And ask yourself, what do I love to do? What does my soul find joy in? What's in me that wants to come out and express itself? What am I good at? What do I have a talent for? What do I want to share with people in my life? Organizing, singing, designing, working outdoors, acting, producing, filmmaking. I did have to draw the line when I wanted to be the prima ballerina in the Royal Ballet Corps, but I was just being realistic. So what do I see myself doing in this? I visualize myself 5 years from now. Am I still doing the same old, same old? How different is my life right now from 5 years ago? Because that will help you be aware of how much you've changed, or how much you've grown, or how much you've learned. Listen in the silence, and when you're at home, give yourself 5 minutes to just quietly sit and think. And don't argue, don't resist, just listen to the ideas that come to you. Don't demand, don't push, just allow the universe to release its wisdom to you and through you. I've gone back to the basic ideas of science of mind. That was helped by doing a book club on Your Inner Light or Aladdin's Lamp. And I went back to Ernest Holmes' book, The Basic Ideas of Science of Mind. Excuse me. And it's the same sort of message I'm going to convey, but the words are so much better in Ernest Holmes. He says, give the law new instructions. Remember that one very important trait of mind is in its action as law. It's obedient. It creates without question. It responds to your firm convictions and beliefs. This at once should settle any difficulty, because now you know your thought of good acting as a command and directive cleans out from that storehouse everything it contains which is negative and detrimental to your well-being. This doesn't mean that you must refresh your memory of old influences and events which did you harm. There's no need to know all about them or renew them. You know, if you've been aware every time you bring up an injustice or a hurt, you feel that emotion all over again. And he's suggesting that that's probably not a good idea. We still need to know what's driving us, and then we heal it. When you make affirmations, declarations, know perfectly that they will be fulfilled. Then keep your conscious thought free of doubt or wondering how it should be done or when. Otherwise, you're hindering the production of the desired results. It's a good thing to declare you're good. The issuance of commands, when you're not thinking of 1,000 other things, it just muddies the water. He didn't say that, I did. Only then will the law of mind have a clear and concise pattern for its actions. This is being explained in very simple language, but the process is profoundly important and one of the most valuable things that you can learn. I hope you get that. Because that's one of the, we can have those underlying thoughts pushing us, and we've discussed a lot in our groups. That's all the yes buts, or I always, or little doubts. No, just be strong, be convinced, dream. I was reading a lot about missions and visions, and the mission is the extension of who you really are, what you are, and can be written in one sentence that feels good and resonates with you. Yes, I can do that. I can see me doing that. And there's an example of Jesus that I read about, and it said it can be argued that the vision statement of Jesus was, I'm here to show you how to live life and live it more abundantly. By looking at what he did, we can find his mission. It might read as follows. I will demonstrate the abundant life by teaching and then demonstrating. I will teach you the art of prayer, the art of healing, the true meaning of love and the true meaning of peace, and the real meaning of immortal life. A mission's important because when you have your mission, it guides you. You can ask yourself, does this fit with my mission? Does this add to my mission, to the vision of my life? And if the answer is no, it's not for you. There's a fact that either you're living your mission or you're living someone else's. So it's worth taking time to decide what you are, who you are, what your essence is. If you're doing what you want to do with your life, then you're not doing what someone else wants you to do. These are things for you to contemplate quietly in your quiet time at home. But I encourage you to be honest about how you feel and assess where you are. Because when you do that, it'll resonate with you and you won't be nearly as confused. I go back to my pal Don Miguel Ruiz, who talked about covenants, and the covenants that we can make with ourselves now. Spiritually, it's a covenant between you and God. But you need to look at the covenants you made as children, the things that you believed when people told you that you're bad or you won't amount to anything. Sometimes we don't even know those things are there, but it's worth finding them because you want to get rid of them. They will cloud your vision. They will cloud your mission. So when they come up, just forgive them, bless them, heal them. It's terribly important. You can rewrite, I am a child of the divine. I'm enthusiastic, I'm talented, I'm gifted, I'm sharing. Whatever I am becomes your truth. And so a covenant with spirit could read as follows. Everything I do each day is focused towards my vision and my mission. And I promise myself that I'll engage only in those actions that are furtherance of my vision and my mission. You know, be faithful, be forgiving, and we keep reminding ourselves that forgiveness isn't for the other person. When we hold resentment, when we hold that lack of forgiveness, that just muddies the water. And it's an extra thing to carry around. It's an extra thing to clutter our brains. So it releases energy and it allows you to experience higher levels of awareness. This does not move me. This is not me. This is not the person I am. And be grateful. Grateful for things that are good, or you might even judge them as not so good. Because in them is usually an experience, there's an element of truth. Sometimes you look back years later and realize, gosh, if that hadn't happened, this wouldn't have happened. So be grateful for everything that happens to you, that comes into your life. And be kind. I was struck on the trip we just did by the kindness of one of our fellow passengers who didn't make a big deal of it. He was just always there looking out for us, and because we were always the last people in the group. Come on, girls, come on, girls. And his wife just said, he's always like that. He's just the essence of kindness. And I know people here are kind. I have to give credit to Bev, my mate, travel companion, because one day a little lady was in the hotel foyer just screaming, and I mean screaming, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. And everybody's either trying to ignore her or rushing around going, oh my God, what's wrong with her? And I have to admit, initially, when Bev went towards her, I went, oh, here she puts on her Superman woman cloak again and off to rescue things. But she quietened that woman and found out what was wrong with her. We were able to find her case, which is what she worried about, being lost, because her hearing aids and her meds were in it. We had to find her room by using the key card on every door on the floor she thought she was on to see if it turned green or red. It was an adventure. But it was through the kindness of Bev that we were able to calm this woman. And I think that's an innate quality that I admire. And so be transparent. It's a difficult thing to describe and can only be experienced, but you'll feel a joy when you're just yourself, when you come from yourself, when you say what you mean and mean what you say. It sounds like a downer, but I want to express, with the time you have left here, what do you want to do with the time you have left here? It's by John Pavlovich. How much of those precious, fleeting, irretrievable, once they're gone moments do you want to spend? Do you want to postpone a dream you've been carried around? Do you want to hold a grudge against someone you can't seem to forgive? Are you obsessing about your waistline, your hairline, or your worry lines? You're waiting for someone else's consent to be happy. Are you being a bystander to injustice? Are you looking for approval from strangers on social media? I hope none of us are doing that. You're being less than the most authentic version of yourself. Are you beating yourself up for stupid things you did as a youth? It's not easy to get those well-worn ruts out of our minds, but it's really worth it because we want to fill our minds with joy and love and excitement and plans and visions for a great future. We don't want to be saying, I'm going to start living someday. I think most of us experience things in the last few years that make us realize that our time could be limited. You know, today is that someday. That someday we're going to put off to do important things because you don't know how many days you have left. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, and I apologize to any Debbies, but we don't put it off. Do it today. We have no idea. So you should live the heck out of today. The chap that wrote this says, ask anything, say everything. Well, within reason, okay? Use your discretion. Give yourself a break, show mercy, have the cake. Notice how fast your children or your grandchildren are growing. Treasure the lines on your face as mementos of grief and joy. I have a lot. Tell someone you love them while they can still hear you. And stop being your own kryptonite. And then have another piece of cake. This day, as ordinary as it might feel, is a precious day because you still have it. It's a wake-up call. When at the end of this experience that we call life, that thing that we seem to be so scared of shows up and gives you the news you didn't want and you didn't see it coming, I trust that it will interrupt you having a great life and living life to the full. Changing your life isn't as hard as you think. There's a Zen Buddhist, Leo Badwata, I hope I'm saying that correctly. He founded Zen Habits. And he says, in order to make a change in one's life, whether it is to get out of debt, become fit enough to run a marathon, or get better with your family, he says, start with a single change. It should be small, not a goal, but a tiny first step. It could be running for 10 minutes. God help me. Spend 2 minutes drawing. Prepare a healthy work lunch just one day a week. It could be to stay in hard conversations longer than you want to stay and promise to listen. And he advises that to turn changes into habits, it's important to make the changes tiny and let them embed. He suggests that we have a little change every 4 to 6 weeks because sometimes the books that inspire us, the speaks that inspire us, make us feel we've got to do everything all at once. And he just says, no, just do a little step at a time. Start very small. Do only one change at a time. Be present and enjoy the activities and don't focus on the results. Be grateful for every step you take. The beauty of this is the smallness removes the problems that result in being overwhelmed and feeling, I can't do it, or not continuing to do it. When it's one tiny little step, we can do it. And just remember that you're not the voice of the mind. You're the one who's hearing it. So when we take those 5 minutes a day to just listen, really listen. You might even hear something outrageous, but think about it, contemplate it. If that voice doesn't feel like you, then listen for another voice, because it might not be you, it might be somebody's influence on you. And to have a real life, to have an authentic life, to have a transparent life, it needs to be you. Believe me, you'll just be as lovable as you are now, well, or even more. So, what story are you telling yourself? What story am I telling myself? My inner voice, it's going all the time. And I accept the stories as stressful nuisances if I'm not aware of them. We're generally looking to validate our own story. So if you walk into a situation with a story, this is going to be such a horrible interview, it will be. It plays like a loop in your head. And what does that do to your demeanor? What does that do to the way you sit, the way you look at the people? So visualize yourself to get out of that loop as people being excited to see you, as seeing you as the person they really want to hire, if that's what you're in, or whatever experience you're planning do that. So, do we have agency over our thoughts? I'm sure you remember the story of Jill Bolte Taylor, who had a traumatic brain hemorrhage. And she couldn't do anything. She couldn't speak, she couldn't walk, she couldn't remember the details of her life. And she began living in pure presence of just an open slate. And her recovery inspired her latest book, where she said we can link thinking and emotional parts of our brain to a newfound agency to choose how we think, we feel, and live. Where do I want to consciously place my energy? It's all cells and circuitry. So the more we run a circuit, the more power it begins to run on its own. We have so much more power over what's going on inside our brains we've never been taught. So I just want to finish with some thoughts that I'll just read them to you. I take complete dominion and responsibility for my life all the time, no matter what. I forever give up all blame and judgment. I take total responsibility for everything I experience, everything I think, and everything I feel. I take nothing personally. Good old Don Miguel again. I respond with compassion and kindness to the events in my life. I identify with only those thoughts and emotions which serve love. Here endeth the lesson. I know there's a lot of stuff there, but I hope that you've got some thoughts that you can carry with you through the week and think about and do something about. So now, Ruth doesn't have to remind me this time. We're going to get the collection, and we'll say together the words as we hold the gift between our beautiful hands. Divine love consecrates my gift. I rejoice in the sharing of my good, and I release my gift with love. I thought you were all fantastic until I noticed you were all looking that way. Thanks, Ruthie. So we'll take a minute just to, if people want treatment, prayers, or have any questions about today, I would be delighted to share them with you and everybody else. I can't really see. I'll take this out. Make it easy. Does anyone have any questions? Great insights? Treatments? Oh, is it a great insight or a question?
Sorry, but I really wanted to thank you, Reverend Kathy. It was a very useful lesson to me, and I need it today, and I will use it. So thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Believe me, I'm using it too. When I was thinking about all these things, it was like okay, Kath, get up and do something about it. Hi.
I want to know what trip you were on. Can you say one more time? I want to know what trip you were on.
It's such a spiritual question. Well, I'm delighted to report that I went from Prague to Paris on one of the riverboats.
On the Donau?
No, on the Moselle.
We have another one over
I did the Donau before.
The cameras can't see you here, by the way.
Okay. I forgot.
Tell us what literature you were reading from, what the books were, what particular referencing you were.
A lot of them are things that I've collected over the years that I just enjoy, and that's why I feel guilty for not acknowledging the writers and a lot of the things. But the two things that I'm enjoying right now are the basic ideas of science of mind, which is Ernest Holmes. And, you know, sometimes when we start classes here, we leap into the textbook, which can be a little confusing. And there are two things that I love more than that. One is the basic ideas of science of mind. He wrote this late in his life, but it's so simple. And so it's worth reading. And the other thing is, you know, I think it's changed its name now, but I've got an old copy of it called This Thing Called You. Part of it is, it's all of us. You know, we don't have to wait until we've got everything done. We just have to acknowledge. Because mind, what we call that intelligence, that divinity, it's all around us. What I realize is we just use it to the extent that we understand it. So one of the great things about this teaching is that as you acknowledge that you want to go further, that's what takes the courage, that's what takes faith, to go that step further. And sometimes that change that will come in you means that things will change in your relationships, in your life, your job. But for you to feel fulfilled, you take that step forward. You know, what's mine to do? Think about what brings you joy. Visualize your life. You know, it's all in your head. But your head's very important because that's, you know, your thoughts change your life. Your thoughts direct your life. So, you don't have to tell anybody about it. You know, often if you share with other people, they'll find all the reasons for you not to do something, to be more cautious, or, you know, you're not going to make enough money. Or one of the things on the trip we just did was to go to Monet's house in Giovanni, and he was considered not to be a good enough artist to be in the group of big artists. It gave him the freedom. I don't know if he hurt his feelings or anything, but it gave him the freedom to paint what he wanted to paint. So even though it was prestigious to be part of the big art culture in Paris, good came out of it. So many of those people, we probably have no idea who they all were, but we certainly know his paintings and the lilies and the bridge, and you know, it was a joy to see all that. So, I've forgotten the question. Oh, the books. Rave. Yeah. So some of the other things, they are things that I've collected, and I admit to not giving credit where credit's due, but the things that have inspired me over the time. And from now on, I'll endeavor to put the name next to them, because I get so much inspiration from people that think clearly and have such depth of understanding that I can't express it as well as they do. And I don't pretend to, but I love sharing it. So that's... Anybody else? No? So I guess we get to do early marks. And just know that, you know, during the week, as you take your time to think and listen and ask those questions, what's mine to do, what brings me joy, what brings me a feeling of authenticity and a reason for being here, just listen, give thanks, and then just let it go. I've had an experience recently where I was telling the book club, I had to put a sign on my bathroom mirror that just said, leave it alone, all that needs to be done is being handled. So every morning when I get up, I just see that right in front of me, and it has been handled beautifully. But it wasn't easy, you know, so that's where the trust, that's where the faith comes in. Okay, everybody? Well, thanks for being here. I don't take written questions for those outside the sanctuary. We'll see you next week or next Sunday.